Hello, welcome to the AfCFTA podcast. On this podcast, we talk about trade. We talk about trade on the continent of Africa. We talk about the vision of Africa to create a single market where goods and services can move from one country to the other without impediment, without hindrances, without barriers, be it tariff barriers or the non-tariff barriers. Now, in the last episode of the AfCFTA podcast, which happened to be the maiden edition, we were privileged to be joined by His Excellency Wamkele Mene, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, a man who has lived through the AfCFTA from its inception, through the negotiation stages, through the implementation stages, where we are now, leading the organ of the African Union mandated to lead the implementation of the AfCFTA agreement, and that is the AfCFTA Secretariat. This week, we are again privileged to be joined by another distinguished individual who has lived the AfCFTA from its inception. He's been part of the negotiations, he's been part of the implementation, because at some point he was a director at the AfCFTA Secretariat before being honored by his country, the Republic of Rwanda, and appointed as Minister in charge of Trade and Industry of the Republic of Rwanda. I caught up with Honourable Prudence Sebahizi at the recently held IATF 2025, the Intra-Africa Trade Fair 2025, held in Algiers, Algeria. We talked about how the private sector can embrace the AfCFTA. We talked about how the political leadership on the continent of Africa can push for effective implementation of the AfCFTA. Colleague ministers of his can support the drive and the momentum of the AfCFTA. Please take a listen. Welcome to the AfCFTA podcast. You are a family member of the AfCFTA. You've been for, God knows, forever. And fortunately, today you are the minister who is in charge of Trade, Republic of Rwanda, doing so much for your country and also for the continent. With where you have come from and the position you hold now in your country, what do you think this means, having a podcast, having a platform for information dissemination? You know, I'm sure these are some of the things that together with your colleagues at the Secretariat, you wish that we had from the beginning. Yeah. What do you think such a platform means for the integration agenda of the continent?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is very good opportunity for me, especially that we've had a number of platforms, but we have not formally spoken and frankly about the journey of AfCFTA. And I'm afraid, the more we take to record that journey, the more risk we run to even forget about it. So I think this is a good opportunity for me, at least to share with you and the rest of the continent what I remember, my best experience I had with AfCFTA process.
How did your journey start with this whole agreement?
Yeah, this journey started long ago. It was around 2015. Actually, if I may be precise, on the 17th of March 2015, that's when I landed in Addis Ababa. And I remember I was moving there to undertake an assignment, a very short-term assignment of 3 months.
On behalf of?
With African Union Commission, on behalf of a partner who had recruited me. It was a fund from DFID, the then DFID, today is FCDO.
FC, yeah.
So it was UK support to the African Union. And at the time, I did not know that this was going to be a big project, because it was just an assignment of technical assistance to provide a technical assistance to African Union Commission. So my first activity when I arrived was to meet the commissioner, the then Commissioner for Trade and Industry, Madam Asil. She was there and she asked me to come up with a roadmap, a kind of work plan of what I'm going to deliver to the commission. And I did it within 24 hours. I was able to present to her my work plan for the next 3 months. And she was impressed. That's when she took me to the office of the Deputy Chairperson then Mwencha, to discuss the vision and ambition that the Commission had in undertaking this assignment of concluding the CFTA.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Was there a moment that you felt, wow, this is the dream? It's now materialized, and it's no longer the dream that a lot of us envisioned for decades ago. Our forefathers had just dreamt of it about 60 years ago and all of that. At what point did you feel that this is no longer a dream?
Through my academic process, I was familiar with Abuja Treaty, the treaty that established the African Economic Community, and I was also familiar with the regional economic communities across Africa and the role those communities were supposed to play in the continental journey. Then, back in 2008, I came across a document which was talking about the Continental Minimum Integration Program, where the aspiration was to fast track the continental integration and achieve African Economic Community by 2024. So I read that minimum integration program keenly, and I had, of course, in 2010, I worked on my thesis, my master's thesis, where I also reflected the continental agenda for integration. So that's where I understood where the continent was heading in terms of integration, economic integration. And then I was also regularly reviewing the publication of UNECA called Assessing Regional Integration in Africa. So there were area series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think up to 11. And at each publication, they mentioned the stage at which Africa was and what was Africa looking ahead. So, to cut the story short, when I joined the AUC, I was guided by the Assembly decision of 2012, which established the AfCFTA,
Yeah.
and which adopted the BIAT, boosting integration in Africa. That was an action plan. So it was a dream. In June 2015, immediately after delivering on my assignment, we got the negotiations of AfCFTA officially launched in Johannesburg. I think that's where the first excitement came. We said now heads of state have endorsed to undertake negotiations. I think the deal is done.
It's becoming a reality.
Yes, because they adopted a roadmap, a very ambitious roadmap. They also adopted the guiding principles that will guide the process of negotiations. And at the time, we had a deadline, a very tight deadline of concluding the agreement by 2017. So starting from 2012, now we are in 2015, we were only left with less than 3 years to conclude the agreement establishing the AfCFTA. It was ambitious, but it was also exciting. So we had not any opportunity to delay the process. So from day one, we were running very, very fast. I think that's where the excitement came, and we said, no, time is not on our side.
Yeah, there were a lot on your shoulders to make sure that you run with this vision. But how did you navigate the political emotions and all of that, knowing that now this is a reality, we've come to this, and you and your colleagues need to run with it and make sure that it happens?
We had worked with the best trade experts on the continent, and other trade experts who are recognized internationally had contributed to the process technically. Many studies had been undertaken, and we had even envisioned the model AfCFTA agreement, which was going to form the basis for negotiations. So technically, we were set. And logistically, we had also established a dedicated unit, the AfCFTA unit, which was under the Department of Trade and Industry, and which I was heading at the time. And we also had a team of experts in different areas of the scope of the AfCFTA. So for me, my first breakthrough was when I saw Africa's chief negotiators in the same room discussing modalities to start negotiations. I said, even if we are not able to conclude negotiations anytime soon, but at least this is the first milestone to have trade negotiators of Africa in the room, in African Union, not in Geneva, because most of them used to meet in Geneva.
Yeah.
So it was the first time I saw we are going to make progress. Then politically, in 2016,
Yeah.
the heads of state received a report on the progress that we had made in negotiations and decided to appoint a champion. And that's when President Yusufu Mahamadou was appointed as the presidential champion to lead the political process of AfCFTA. And I think that one was another key milestone because we said, yes, technically we are well equipped, and also politically we are well equipped.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that one gave me assurance, full assurance that it's a matter of time.
And so from that time, you saw that the political will was fully ready for that, even at the heads of states level.
Yes, it was. And what was more impressive about AfCFTA throughout the process, AfCFTA was one of the 10 flagship projects of Agenda 2063 at the time. And every time we reported back to the Assembly, AfCFTA was ranked number 1 as the best performing
Wow.
flagship project. And at the same time, AfCFTA was regularly on the agenda of the Assembly. At every Assembly, we had to report the progress. I think that political momentum itself has never happened to any other project in African Union history.
That's interesting to note. And ever since the takeoff of the AfCFTA, and you were at the Secretariat, playing significant role in that respect, headed by the Secretary General, led momentous works in there. You had ratification being deposited, and you had adjustments fund, for instance, a number of instruments. Adjustment fund came up. We have the Pan-African payment and settlement systems coming up. Which of all of the things that happened at that time, after the takeoff, stands out for you?
Before we even talk of those instruments, another key milestone that we achieved in the AfCFTA process was to agree to establish a secretariat that was going to be autonomous.
Yeah.
That was going to drive the entire process. If you go through the agreement, Article 13 of the agreement, which was establishing the Secretariat, was not agreed upon until the Assembly of Heads of State met. The article was still bracketed, and only the Heads of State decided, yes, we need this organization called AfCFTA Secretariat. So just to tell you the magnitude, the intensity that was in the heads of negotiators when they thought of the future of the AfCFTA.
And if you can shed light a little bit on the role the Secretariat has played since the dream materialized to have a continental agreement on the continent.
When you look at the process of negotiations, it was member states driven. So you could only have chief negotiators in the room, probably every 3 to 2 weeks. But once they have left, there is no one who will
to continue the momentum.
Institutional memory. Even when they come back, the next session, they will have to be reminded of what transpired during the previous meetings, because some countries had changed their chief negotiators a number of times. So the establishment of the Secretariat was the best way to keep an institutional memory of the entire process. That's the function number 1. The function number 2, the Secretariat was going to track all the political decisions that have been made around the process and make sure that they are implemented. Because if there is no institution to remind the member states of what they have decided before, then they will forget.
Yeah.
Because of the turnover in the government. Then, thirdly, the Secretariat was going to propose the way forward. So what will be the next step? So each and every time, the Secretariat was going to be a think tank of member states to trigger the next step of the AfCFTA process. Otherwise, member states will just thought by concluding the agreement, the deal is done, and it will be forgotten. So the biggest role of the Secretariat is to be the engine of the process throughout and not let it stop.
And keep the conversation going and running all the time. So the Secretariat had taken on all these assignments, bringing together the various political institutions, the various states, parties, and all of that. In doing so much, and you began putting together your protocols, and you began bringing about your instruments and all of that. Probably talk to us about some of the key protocols and the instruments that were put in place for parties to embrace and then begin implementation.
Yeah, the agreement was very comprehensive and is still comprehensive in scope because it touches on trade in goods and trade in services, investment, intellectual property rights, competition policy, women and youth in trade, digital trade. So those are different set of legal instruments that form the agreement itself. It also has a dispute settlement mechanism. But for those legal instruments to come together and speak to private sector in a professional and business-oriented world, it was necessary to simplify them. So when we say guided trade initiative, for example, is to try to make sure that the private sector can navigate through those legal instruments, but also test them on the ground. It doesn't make sense to tell an exporter we need a certificate of origin because the certificate of origin means nothing to him. But if you bring a product to the market and they ask you, can you confirm where this product is coming from? And then by confirming that, you need to have a certificate
showing the origin of your raw materials and
exactly.
everything.
And that's where now they start thinking, okay, these are rules of
The
origin.
requirements, yeah?
Then when you go through the clearance process at the customs, then they will ask you, where did you get the raw materials? What value have you added to this product? You know now the bureaucracy. How long does it take to clear the goods? How much do you have to pay in terms of duties? Then you start understanding, okay, the tariff. When you talk about tariff reduction process, this is what we mean because it's the cost I have to pay to get my goods cleared at the border. So the guiding trade initiative to me is instrument number one that has materialized all those legal texts into something tangible for the private sector. And now the second one, if I may, is the payment system. I know PAPS has a long way to go because some countries have not yet adopted it. But for those that have adopted it, we congratulate them. And the message is clear. For every trade transaction, there has to be a payment. And that payment, if it is not made easier for the buyer to pay in the local currency and for the seller to receive transaction in their own currency, then we are going to incur a lot of cost of transaction. The cost of converting money and also the cost of transfer. So PAPS is also going to revolutionize the business within the AfCFTA. So I can say PAPS will be number two
for you
after guided trade initiative.
And it's good you brought the guided trade initiative. So from what you described, more or less, it was a proof of the concept, the AfCFTA concept for you. would you say that it's been able to drive the AfCFTA agenda across the continent? Was it able to achieve the goals that you, for instance, you were anticipating to see when it comes to people taking advantage of the AfCFTA and having a commercially meaningful trading on the continent?
The Guided Trade Initiative is a wake-up call, because when we launched it in 2022, only 8 countries participated. Despite that many countries had ratified the agreement at the time, just 8 of them were ready to flag their products, to flag off their products and export it to the AfCFTA state parties. So for me, I think the Guided Trade Initiative has played a role of creating awareness to the member states of what they have to do, creating awareness to the private sector of their role in the AfCFTA, and also it has been a test for Africa to understand what do we produce really. Because when you look at the composition of what countries are exporting now, that's when you realize, okay, are we producing or can we do much more? Because most of the products that were traded on day one were agricultural commodities, coffee, tea, and very few processed goods. So now it's high time for Africans to understand, okay, we need to do more in terms of productive capacity.
For instance, you have protocols that are coming around digital trade.
Yeah.
You have intellectual property and all of that. To what extent do you see these areas of expansion when it comes to modern trade on the continent, instead of the traditional ones that will be used?
If I may tell you, the protocol on investment, apart from opening up the market, you need to produce for that market, and you cannot produce if you don't invest. So the protocol on investment, to me, was the most important complement of any trade agreement, because for you to trade, you have to produce, and for you to produce, you have to invest. Now we have the protocol on intellectual property rights. It's a good message to the young entrepreneurs of Africa, because now the intellectual property rights protocol is going to encourage innovation with giving assurance to entrepreneurs that the innovation, their intellectual properties are going to be protected within the continent, with assurances that once you register your business in one country, you can protect it across other 55 countries in Africa. So I think intellectual property rights was very necessary. Now, let's come to the revolutionary trade instrument, which is digital trade. So the protocol on digital trade, to me, at this current level of technology, is going to cover everything that we've been doing traditionally, because literally, when we talk about trade, we are talking about digital trade. Because every trade ecosystem has to be digitized. I will give you one example. Apart from talking about e-commerce, which is just one part of digital trade, setting up e-commerce platform, selling products online, you need entire ecosystem of logistics to make sure that you have warehouses that are digitally monitored, that can accommodate products that will be traded online. You need to have a trade facilitation mechanism that will allow tracking of the cargoes, that will allow tracking of consignments from the ports to the borders, that will digitize customs systems, like what we have as electronic cargo tracking system, electronic single window. And at the same time, when you are talking about the digitization of trade, we are also talking about having a tracking mechanism of what trade is happening on the continent. So digital trade for me is everything for the rest of the AfCFTA trade agreement.
So, Minister, we know that the AfCFTA is a journey. Where do you hope to see the AfCFTA agenda by the next 10 years thereabout?
When we say we have achieved, AfCFTA objective is when we have increased the level of intra-African trade. And for me today, we are talking about 15%. Back in time, we were talking about closer to 20%. So it's like we have not made progress.
Yes.
Not because we are not trading amongst each other, but because we are trading more with the rest of the world than we are trading amongst ourselves. And the reasons are known. The reason why we are not trading amongst ourselves is because we do not produce what we are buying from outside. So we can say the AfCFTA has achieved its objectives when we increase that level of intra-African trade at least beyond 30%, 40%, why not 50%? When we have made sure that we produce everything that we are buying from outside Africa, when we make sure that we have achieved the level of technology that other countries, other industrialized countries have achieved, and then we can be self-sufficient. So that's number one. Then number two, this agreement of AfCFTA provides for full liberalization of trade. So can we make sure that all countries have allowed access to goods originating from Africa to their market, duty-free, quota-free? If you export to any African country, you don't need to pay duties, you don't need to pay customs duties, you don't have to pay, you are not limited by the quota, and you are also not facing what we call non-tariff barriers.
Yeah.
So that one is going to be objective number two, that each country can access through their regulatory frameworks. Then objective number three, which I think is also very important. Can we start having multinationals in Africa where you have one company presence in more than 5 countries on the continent? Because of this protocol on investment, then we can say we are achieving the protocol on investment. We have a multinational company in Africa that has presence in almost all African countries. Then the other objective that I think is also going to be achieved if we work hard is to digitize all trade transactions on the continent, to make sure that we can track trade across all borders in one single window. This is a tool, this is an infrastructure, a digital infrastructure that AfCFTA Secretariat can put in place that can be able to track trade transactions across the continent, at the ports, at the borders, and also can have a clear set of data on what we are trading amongst ourselves. And this will be a very good tool for us to make impactful decisions.
Is there an area of objective expectations that you have of small and medium enterprises and young people in particular?
Yes. When we talk about digitizing trade, we're actually talking about small and medium enterprises. We are talking about youth of Africa. Because the mobile penetration in the continent has improved a lot, to the extent that even our young babies still use the smartphones. So how can we use those tools, the smartphones, to make trade transactions, to sell goods, to receive payments? So digitizing trade to me is a revolution for youth of Africa to fully take ownership of the AfCFTA. Digitizing trade is a revolution for ensuring inclusiveness, because through mobile payment systems, for example, everyone has access to money. In the past, it was not the case. You could only have access to money when you have a bank account, when you have a job, or when you have a big business. But today, everyone can make daily transactions on the phone. So for me, digital technology is what is going to make a big difference in Africa.
Yep. How do you assess party states' readiness and willingness to carry on this agenda in achieving some of these objectives that you have stated? Using Rwanda probably, where you steer the affairs when it comes to trade, as a typical example, what should party state be doing to help us achieve these goals that you talk about?
Yeah, trade is everything. Trade touches the lives of people. Trade improves the standards of living of people. Trade can take away poverty. So for me, I think trade is a very good tool for any country to achieve its development objectives. And let's not just look at it as creating a market. Let's look at it as creating an ecosystem where every citizen can have entrepreneurial skills, can have an activity that will make value for their time, that can make value for their money. And with having this AfCFTA ecosystem, for me, I think any country can achieve its developmental objectives using the tools of AfCFTA, using the agreements, which is the starting point. You don't have to spend a lot of time redesigning policies. You just have to domesticate AfCFTA legal instruments because they are the best.
Yeah.
They are the best.
Yeah.
So by domesticating them, then you have saved the time and money to design new policies. And then can you make sure that you put in place institutions that will assist you to implement those legal instruments? Then can we make sure that we build the capacities of our people, of our citizens to understand those legal instruments? Now, more importantly, how do we empower our private sector? Because the private sector is going to be at the heart of the AfCFTA, and the private sector has always been driving economies. So bringing the private sector on board is a very big achievement if countries are able to do that.
Yeah. Honorable Minister, that's an impressive one. But then, some of these party states will be asking, so where do we start from? Who do we partner? Who can help us, navigate around the complexities of making sure that our private sector embraces the AfCFTA and all of that? What's the best way forward? Who are the possible partners to party states to ensure proper implementation of the AfCFTA?
Yeah, the partner number one will be the private sector. It's the private sector that will provide financing for the continental projects through what we call public-private partnerships. Even when we talk about public infrastructure that will connect different countries, I think the private sector has to be there. We have private sector financial institutions that are able to raise funding for big projects of infrastructure, energy, and so on and so forth. So for me, there is nothing that private sector cannot do if they understand what will be the benefits of the AfCFTA. Then you have international organizations, starting with financial institutions such as AfRexim Bank, African Development Bank. These institutions that are in charge of development on the continent should take the lead in financing big projects, whether project of logistics, trade logistics, project of road development, railway development, infrastructure project, energy generation, because the cost of energy is still affecting our productive capacities. So for me, those are the key partners that we should be looking for if we want to make AfCFTA a reality, and then others will come to complement. Government will play their role, and they have done so by setting the good policy and legal framework, but the private sector needs to take full ownership because they are the ones who will benefit.
And that brings me to a very thorny subject. A lot of people are asking, we've done a guided trade initiative that was led by governments. We've seen that the AfCFTA, together with countries,
Yeah.
have commenced commercially meaningful trading led by presidents, ministers, and all of that, including yourselves. At what point does the private sector take ownership and begin to trade themselves without being guided by the state or by the Secretariat?
They should have done it yesterday. I think we say guided because the AfCFTA was negotiated by governments, so the private sector did not know much about what was going on until the agreement was signed and ratified. So guided trade initiative was a kind of introducing the private sector to the AfCFTA process. But I can say it could have been done just once, and then the next time private sector can take it on. If we have done guided trade initiative twice or three times, and now we have made it a practice that every country that launches trade within AfCFTA for the first time, they have to do so by flagging off their consignments, is a way of creating awareness to the private sector. But I'm quite convinced that private sector can trade organically without needing government to be in the middle.
Take Rwanda, for example. What would you tell Rwandans to begin to do now that you as a government have led the AfCFTA? The people of Rwanda, businesses in Rwanda, particularly women in trade, young people, innovators here and there, what would you tell them, please?
AfCFTA offers immense opportunities to Rwanda, to Rwandan people, and to the private sector in Rwanda, because it expands the size of the country. You look at Rwanda from a geographic point of view, it's a small country. From the population point of view, it's a small market, but the AfCFTA has expanded the size of the country in terms of population from 14 million to 1.4 billion. Anything that you produce in Rwanda can be sold to 1.4 billion people in Africa. When we attract investors, we don't talk about Rwanda as the market. We talk about Rwanda as investment destination, and the market is AfCFTA. So that's a big difference. Now for Rwandan private sector, we have to make sure that we produce for this market. We have to multiply our efforts in what we are doing to produce for this big market. So I think the message is clear. It's an opportunity, it's an immense opportunity. It's an endless opportunity.
And then beyond the economic operators in Rwanda, the governments of party states, what have you done in connection with the AfCFTA, which you think that governments of party states should also begin to do?
Yeah, the first thing that we did is that Rwanda was among the first countries that participated in the guided trade initiative. We have established AfCFTA trading companies, and these trading companies are navigating through the bureaucracy, the process of export and import within the AfCFTA. They are telling stories, they are sharing best and worst practices in the AfCFTA. They are telling stories about how other countries are receiving them. And I think this itself is education process to the rest of the private sector. But at the same time, Rwanda has done a number of reforms. So after having signed and ratified the AfCFTA agreement, we have made sure that we align all our policies and legal instruments to those of AfCFTA. We have created a business-friendly environment for investors and for businesses in Rwanda and from outside Rwanda. and we have created awareness. So I think these are the tasks that government had to do. The rest is in the hand of the private sector.
I am sure that a lot of your colleagues back at, former colleagues at the Secretariat, as well as even the people of Rwanda would love to know that has your life been all about trade all this while? You love trade. You seem to talk trade everywhere. You negotiate trade. Has your life been all about trade?
I think I've focused on trade over the last couple of decades because I know I've spent more than 20 years in this process.
I see.
But on the sideline of trade, there are so many other things that I can do. I'm able to do business. I'm able to be entrepreneur myself. I'm able to do all other social enterprises, but trade has taken much of my time.
Yeah.
And it has been an exciting journey because first it has opened up my mindset beyond the country, and at the same time it has allowed me to grow personally because it has exposed me to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So I can do so many other things beyond trade, but for now I have to admit.
But you have a very fun life that when you're not doing trade, what are you doing?
I do sports.
You do sports?
Yes.
Which sports? Which sports are you interested in?
I'm no longer a professional player, but I can use my spare time to do any sport because I've played all of them when I was young.
I see. Have you ever been a professional player?
I have, at university.
Which one? Soccer?
No, I played soccer at high school, but at university I played handball.
Good.
So I was a professional
handball player
of handball.
Do you still do some bits and pieces here and there, just to keep body and soul together?
I moved to martial arts later on, so I'm no longer playing those games that require a lot of forces, but I've moved to soft sports.
Soft sports. And a lot of people around, particularly young men and women who aspire to be like you in their lifetime. Has it been all academic, reading? What else have you been up to? Do you read a lot?
You cannot be successful if you just focus on one thing. So you have to balance, because a human being is very complex. So you need to have, yes, that professional motivation to do and achieve something, but you also have to think of yourself. You have to be healthy. You have to lead a life that is decent, then that allows you to achieve more. So you cannot just focus on your profession. You have to also focus on yourself and make sure that you grow professionally and personally.
The continent of Africa, your country, the people of Rwanda, say something to young people across the continent of Africa, and then say something to the Secretariat, your people.
The message I can give to the young Africans is that whatever you do it well. Do it well. Put your full hearts to it. There is a saying that do what you love. If you cannot do what you love, love what you do. So I think that's the best way to make progress in whatever you are doing, and do it well. You do what you love. If you cannot find what you love, you love what you do.
Sir Minister, we thank you and wish you well, and we'll continue to reach out. Thank you for coming to the AfCFTA podcast.
Thank you.
Hope to see you another time, though.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.